Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Weather and Radar Meteorologist Becca Parker. We're going over Hurricane Milton, major Hurricane Milton today. It's been the top news for the last several days, and it is set to impact Florida later tonight, making landfall somewhere between the Tampa Bay area, Sarasota, Bradenton area. So that will become more clear as it does draw more near to the Florida coastline. As you can see behind me here, we have the weather radar showing Milton. Milton is a strong category 4 hurricane. And just as a little note, Milton reached category 5 status twice, as it has been going through the Gulf of Mexico, the very warm Gulf of Mexico, and it's had nothing but pure fuel to move through. Little shear and very warm waters, like we saw with Helene just less than 2 weeks ago now. Very warm waters in the Gulf to allow this thing to strengthen. It has weakened. I say weakened with quotes because this thing is still a very large, destructive hurricane. It has weakened to a category 4 status, just as far as winds go. And winds are at 145 miles per hour sustained and higher gusts. Impacts are already being seen across Florida here. We've had reports of tornado outbreaks, as you can see, these outer bands moving across the Florida Peninsula here with all these lightning strikes. And let me put this real quick in Fahrenheit because that makes more sense. Anyway, we have a lot of tornado outbreaks happening here across the Florida Peninsula as Hurricane Milton does move in near the peninsula here this Wednesday. So as we go about this live, I encourage you to ask questions. We have the chat going, so please feel free to drop any questions you do have into the chat. I will be checking back to make sure that we can answer those for you and get you the most direct information as we can. If you know anybody in the path of Milton or even just interested in this kind of thing, please send them the live. We are going to be going over all of these details that are very important as Milton does make its impacts here across the Florida Peninsula before it makes landfall later this evening. Excuse me, real quick. Okay. So yes, again, drop your questions in there. If you have a question, it's likely somebody else has the exact same question. So please feel free to drop them in the chat. There are no stupid questions when it comes to something this impactful here across Florida. Florida has had quite the last 2 weeks. It was impacted by Helene, making landfall here in the Panhandle across the Big Bend. And now we have Milton. Milton moving in, 145 mile per hour sustained winds, very heavy rainfall. Earlier this week and over the weekend, we saw a lot of heavy rainfall over Florida. So Milton's also bringing that really heavy rainfall. And what that's going to cause is flooding issues because the ground is already very saturated. So please be on the lookout. If you are anywhere, hopefully you've evacuated if you are off the west central coast of Florida. But if you're anywhere inside the peninsula here, and you are getting that heavy rainfall, please be on the lookout for flash flooding. It is very likely it's going to happen. And turn around, don't drown. I know you hear this all the time. I know we say it all the time. It's so important because the road may not even be underneath the water that you're looking at right ahead of you. That's happened several times. So please just turn around. I know it's going to take a little bit longer to get where you need to go, but you may save a life. You may save your own life. So please turn around, don't drown if you come to a flooded roadway. As you see here on the weather radar, this is a great tool to be keeping an eye on the Weather and Radar app. We have heavy rainfall. We have the lightning happening here on the outer bands of Milton, and the eye is round here in the center of the hurricane here. So let's bring up the wind radar as well. This is the current wind radar that we see right now as it's pulling up. Perfect. So the winds are really gusting here across the eastern and southeastern portions of the hurricane, which are the most strongest portions of the hurricane. The eastern and southeastern quadrants here are the strongest portions of the hurricane. This is why we're talking about a lot of storm surge, and I will talk about this more as we get into more detail about where it's going to make landfall. The storm surge has been the big one here across the west central areas of Florida. We have some very low-lying areas, the outer islands that just got impacted again by Helene. We saw feet and feet of water towering up to homes, windows, and second stories. And unfortunately, a lot of deaths happened due to staying around. And unfortunately, the storm surge does cause a lot of issues with that. So if you've been under a mandatory evacuation, please evacuate if you can. It's going to be a very, very dangerous situation to stay around in. a lot of drownings likely if you're going to be staying around. So that's just the fact. So as Milton does move into the Florida Peninsula later tonight, in addition to already being a very strong major hurricane, it's going to be dark out. So if you are in those areas that are being impacted, we have no lights. It's likely the electricity is going to be out, no street lights, and there's going to be feet of water and a lot of rainfall, gusty winds, stuff in the water. It's very dangerous. And then you have that hurricane making landfall. So it's not a good situation to stick around in. Evacuate if you've not already done so. We encourage you on that. All right, so we're going to take a look at a couple of tools that you can use on the Weather Radar app completely for free so that you are able to track Milton as it does move in. Obviously, you're already getting a lot of local information. If you are in the if you're in the path of Milton, you're getting a lot of information from your local officials as far as evacuations, safety zones, shelters, and things like that. There's a lot of information coming in, but there's other tools that you can use to keep an eye on this hurricane. And we're going to show you that on the Weather and Radar app here. So let me bring this up just so you can see exactly what we are dealing with. I'm going to turn me off real quick as well. All right. These are the main impacts we're looking at here. Life-threatening storm surge. I just went over that. Up to 15 feet of storm surge. That's 15 feet in addition to whatever the high tide is in that area. In addition to the rainfall, it's 15 feet of water coming in off of the ocean and moving inland. So it can move in miles. And damaging hurricane force winds, 110 plus miles per hour. We do expect that as Milton does move closer to the Florida Peninsula, it's going to get bigger, but it's also going to weaken just a little bit more. Again, weaken in quotes. The winds are still going to be very damaging, 110 plus mile per hour. Those are sustained. So we have higher gusts in addition to that. So these are very strong winds that are not safe to be out in, as well as the heavy flooding, rainfall, and that flash flooding. 15 plus inches of rain. I'll get into details here exactly where we're going to be seeing those 15 plus inches of rainfall. But this is in addition to that storm surge as well. So you got up to 15 feet of storm surge, 15 inches of rain, a lot of water moving into the coast here. And all these people that have already been impacted by Helene and that stayed out way off the coast, this is moving in where you were. So this is going to be making landfall, again, somewhere between Tampa Bay, the Sarasota, Bradenton area. We expect that maybe a little bit further south as well. So again, we'll know more information on that as it does get closer to landfall. All right, let's move on here. So I said earlier how we're already seeing some tornado outbreaks that leave these outer bands. So tornadoes have been happening here across the Florida Peninsula. Many who are even trying to evacuate still have come and have seen off the highway some tornadoes that have been happening here. You can look on our social media. We have it right up there for you. And I will link that in the comments here in a moment. We have tornadoes happening in addition to these gusty winds, heavy rainfall as well. And these tornadoes, some of them are easy to see, some of them are not. With hurricanes, with all that rainfall coming in, it's sometimes very, very hard to see these tornadoes because they are rain wrapped. So those of you who are in these areas that are getting those warnings, please take heed and take precautions when you're getting those warnings. Get to the most inner portions of the area that you're in, that building that you're in. Get to safety when these tornadoes do come through. This is the entire Florida Peninsula, by the way. Miami, West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie. You are going to be impacted by this, even though you're not going to be having it landfall in your area. You're already seeing these heavy rain. You're seeing the tornadoes and things like that. So please have at least 3 ways to receive a weather warning, if not more. Not just on your phone. If power goes out and you can't charge it, you got no other way to receive a warning. You want to make sure you have other ways to get it. A NOAA weather radio is a great way to get a warning as well. Keep that in mind. All right. I want to point out here too, Florida has just had a busy past 5 years, and notice that the landfalls here in the past 5 years, since 2018, since Michael, have been at least a major category 3 or higher. We have Milton 2024 happening somewhere here across the Tampa Bay area, the metro area, and just surroundings possible for landfall. But we just had Ian in 2022. Many are just now opening after Ian, after they made impact down in the Fort Myers area, Sanibel, Captiva, all of that. So a lot of places are just now opening, and now we've got this happening. And then further north, we had Helene and Idalia, categories 3 and 4. So we've had a busy west coast of Florida, including the Panhandle, past 5 years. So a lot of impacts, unfortunately. And now it is the west central portion of Florida's turn to receive Milton here as a major category 4 hurricane, possibly category 3 later on during landfall. All right. As far as your tools, you need a tool belt when we deal with this kind of stuff. So we've got hurricane alerts right on the app that are completely free for your location that show up days in advance, hours in advance, before you are impacted by a hurricane or a tropical storm. Have those alerts switched on. It's really easy to do. You just go right into the top left corner of your app, click that hamburger menu, and then turn your notifications on for alerts. You can get this information early. And this is part of your 3 ways to receive a weather warning, right? Because you're going to get information about hurricanes, you're going to get information about possible severe weather in your area. So this is going to help you keep that in your tool belt so that you know exactly what you can expect as these hurricanes do move inland across Florida, Milton being one of them. All right. You can use the weather radar too. That's what I was showing earlier when we just started the live. The weather radar is a great tool to watch exactly where the hurricane is. And you can click anywhere on that weather radar to get to the wind radar, which is what I was just showing you. And that will show the intensity of the gusts. And you can see that eye perfectly for a hurricane on there. Tap any city and you'll get the locations forecast as well. So that's really easy to use right on your app. So you have all that information that you do need, so that you can see exactly what you need to see as Milton does move into the Florida Peninsula. All right, I'm going to check for any questions. This is a lot of information we just went over, and we've got more to do. So thank you all so much for joining us. Please, again, send this live to anybody who is being impacted by Milton. We encourage you to have these tools in addition to all the other tools that you've likely put in your tool belt with all the busy hurricane impacts we've seen over the last 2 weeks across Western Florida. All right, again, Hurricane Milton Category 4 was recently a Category 5 twice. And it's also among the top 3 strongest Gulf hurricanes to be on record. So Milton is definitely historical, and it's not even made landfall yet. So a lot of people are keeping a close eye on Milton. It's pretty quiet just around everywhere else in the U.S., except for maybe some gusty winds. So everybody's keeping an eye on Milton as it does make its way towards the Florida Peninsula. I want to double check here on some tornado possible information that I can get here for you. Let's see. So there are areas across southern Florida that have received multiple tornadoes. They've not been totally verified yet, but they have been reported. So let me see if I can pull this up for you, just so you know exactly what I'm talking about as well. Like I said, tornadoes are going to be a big part of these issues that we're seeing here across the area. So at the outer bands of the hurricanes are very impactful. I know it's not even the central portion of the hurricane yet, but they cause severe weather. So we're going to be seeing that even more as Milton does make its way closer and closer to the Florida Peninsula, and it's likely we're going to be seeing more tornado issues in these areas. All right, let me pull this up for you. All right, I'll add this just so you can see these tornado reports and just how many there have been just this morning. Milton's been very busy just this morning. So, I just want to give you guys the information on what we're seeing as information just continues to come in. It's a very busy morning here as Milton does make its way closer and closer to the Florida Peninsula. Let me see if I can bring this up for you. All right. It's not working on my end at the moment, but we'll just give it a second here to load. Okay, here we go. Perfect. All right, this is just the information so far. This is the tornado outbreak that's underway currently as of this afternoon and early this morning. 4 tornadoes have already been reported across southern Florida as these outer bands do move in. So you see near Fort Lauderdale, Montour, Florida, as well as Clewiston, and I'm so sorry if I do pronounce it wrong, Miccosukee, Service Plaza, Florida, is also seeing tornado reports from these outer bands. So please take shelter if you get a tornado warning, and make sure you have those 3 ways to receive a weather warning in addition to that, because this is going to be very important. Even if you're not being impacted by landfall, Milton is still causing issues in your area. All right, let's go back to the wind radar. So as you can see here, Milton is just off the coast of Florida here on the western side. Let's go over the impacts that we're going to be seeing as Milton does continue to move in. All right, let me pull this up for you. So we have a lot of impacts that are coming with Milton. Like I said earlier, we had the information about the storm surge. We have the heavy rainfall. We've got tornadoes coming in. So let me just pull up exactly what storm surge looks like as Milton does make its way in. So storm surge, if you don't know what it is, if you've never heard of it before, storm surge is water being moved out of the ocean inland. It's moving inland because of the heavy gusty winds from these hurricanes. And this pushes feet of water into the coastline wherever a hurricane is impacting. So, especially along that eastern and southeastern quadrant of the hurricane, we see a lot of water being pushed in. These are really, really heavy winds, and it can push a lot of water. It's got a lot of energy to push that in. That is why we're seeing 10 to 15 feet. That's our highest storm surge possibility here across West Central Florida, from Anna Maria Island all the way down to Boca Grande. And you will see this water is likely going to be reaching here 10 to 15 feet. It's not good. It's going to be reaching up into second stories of homes. And we already saw that with Helene. We got up to 8 feet of storm surge with Helene. A couple of spots might have seen a little bit more. This is even more as Milton does move into the Florida Peninsula. Tampa Bay area, 8 to 12 feet. Tampa Bay area is very prone to storm surge because the infrastructure just does not handle it. It's never handled an impacting hurricane like this before either, coming right into it. So this is going to be a big test for Tampa Bay area, all the infrastructure that is there. There's been a lot of precautions taken. We've been seeing a lot of people evacuate. We've been seeing a lot of precautions taken as far as hospitals evacuating patients to other hospitals, and even the water walls that we've been seeing that people have been putting up. We have, excuse me, weather reporter Jonathan Petramala down there on the scene in the Tampa Bay area, who has been showing us a lot of prep work that has been going on for days. People are taking this really seriously, which is awesome to see. And it's no wonder, seeing as we just had Helene less than 2 weeks ago. So a lot of people are taking this seriously, and we're just going to be seeing a lot of impacts, unfortunately, from Milton as it does move in. So good to see those precautions being taken. It doesn't stop there as far as storm surge. This is going almost the entire Florida state. So it even goes into the Big Bend here, even to the Indian Pass area of the Panhandle, all the way down to the Keys. And once it does move across the Florida Peninsula, we're going to be seeing storm surge totals go up to 5 feet here on the eastern coast of Florida, and then up to 4 feet, up to 3 feet here into the Carolinas and southeastern Georgia. So everyone here across the southeast is paying close attention for that storm surge. Those of you that are on the coastline, please pay close attention. If you've not evacuated, obviously these areas are under huge mandatory evacuation orders. There are evacuation orders even further south here too because of this storm surge. Like I said earlier, a lot of people are still recovering from Ian, even just from 2 years ago. So there's going to be a lot of impacts from just storm surge just by itself. I'll check for questions before we move forward. Perfect. Well, I'm glad this is working out. Everybody's getting a lot of information, so I'm glad that this is working out for you all. All right, let's take a look here at the tornado impacts. So we talked about how there's already a tornado outbreak going on across the Florida Peninsula. We have an enhanced risk for severe weather. It's no wonder. Enhanced risk means scattered to numerous tornado reports, damaging wind reports, and heavy rainfall, as well as possible hail. We're probably not going to be seeing hail here across Florida. Heavy rainfall, damaging winds, and tornadoes is what we're going to be seeing here in the enhanced risk. And the numerous reports of this is what we expect. Slight risk extends all the way down to Miami and the Keys area, with even Orlando in that slight risk as well on the northern end. But Fort Myers and Melbourne, Florida, all of you that are in there and in that area of the enhanced risk, which is the orange here, please keep an eye out for tornado reports, tornado warnings, severe weather warnings. Have those 3 ways to receive a weather warning. Even more is great, just so you get all that information in there. We do have an isolated risk just on that northern end of Milton as it moves across. Just here across the northern portions of Florida. So please keep an eye out. Even up to Jacksonville, you could be seeing some severe weather. So again, Milton's going to be moving across the entire Florida Peninsula. A lot of people are going to be impacted here. We've got huge population zones here as Milton does move across. All right, let's also get into what the map looks like here. So we've got hurricane warnings, tropical storm warnings, severe weather warnings just moving across Florida here. And it's no wonder with all those tornado impacts, we've got the hurricane warnings, obviously, from Milton. Let's talk about the rainfall. Just till tomorrow morning, till Thursday morning, we are seeing a lot of rainfall here from Milton. It's already started. Everybody across the Florida Peninsula is very well versed in how much rain's been falling there, and even more is coming today. So we could see up to 10 to 15 inches here in the north central areas of Florida. And even along the coastline, though, you'll see even more, possibly 15 plus inches. That's where that zone of 15 plus inches we talked about earlier is going to be. But these heavy rainfall impacts happen here all the way up to Jacksonville southward. So we're going to be seeing at least 2 to 3 inches here in the purple areas, but your heavy zones for rainfall right up here, Tampa Bay to the northeast of that. So you could be seeing 7+ inches here in that area, 15+ inches right along the coastline there. So flooding, storm surge, tornadoes, a lot of things happening here from Milton. So please take precautions. Please have your warnings turned on so you can get all that information. All right, what else do we need to go over here? We've got a lot of information from Milton. We are providing a lot of more information on the app. We have, the app is completely for free. Those of you that have it, awesome. Those of you that don't have it, it's really easy to download. I'll drop the link in here when I bring it up so that you can have the latest information here from Milton all day, and even for future storms and hurricanes. And then especially we're getting into the winter season, right? So we're going to be seeing some winter storm things as well. So let's see if I can bring this up for you. We're also going to be showing a lot of stuff on our social media, a lot of the impacts too. So please keep an eye on that as well, so you can see what's happening from this. Milton's going to be very historical as it does move across, and we do expect Milton to stay a hurricane as it moves the entirety across the entirety of the Florida Peninsula as it does move across, even through tomorrow. So I'm going to drop right here in the chat the downloading link that you can use to download the Weather and Radar app if you've not already done so. So please feel free to download that. I just want to bring up the latest National Hurricane Center update as well before we close out this live. Thank you all so much for sticking around. This is a lot of information. I know it's a lot of information to go over. So we will continue to bring a lot of information to you right on the app. We have notifications going out. We've got social media going out as well. And then there's impacts right in issues that are from Milton right on the app in our forecast articles. So you can read those to get all the information that you do need. Let's pull up here what the latest advisory is. Alrighty, 145-mile-per-hour winds and 931 millibars as far as the pressure goes. Milton was impressive. Before it even just got to this, it's going to be impressive anyway, but Category 5 twice as it did move over the Gulf of Mexico. It did weaken a little bit and then came up to Category 5 again yesterday evening, and overnight it stayed that until this morning. And the pressure got down to 905. That's a very low pressure for this area. But again, I want to talk about just recently, or not recently, but Milton's been added to the top 3 as far as strongest hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico on record, as far as we know. So this is going to be very impactful no matter what. Milton's already made history as it has moved across the Gulf of Mexico, and it went from Category 1 to a Category 5 within 18 hours under rapid intensification earlier this week. So Milton's already been in the headlines as far as the impacts that it's made just by itself. So we're going to be seeing even more as it does make landfall. Let me pull up real quick too where we expect landfall to be as far as the cone of uncertainty. I say cone of uncertainty because what that means is the center of the hurricane could be anywhere inside this cone, right? We've heard this before. The center could be here, could be here, could be here. So this is just a general idea of where that center could be, just based on fluctuations of the circulation. So we do expect Milton to be making landfall as a Category 3, maybe a Category 4 hurricane later this evening. It's dark out. It's going to add extra issues when it's dark out if you're still there. So this is going to be a very, very dangerous situation to be across West Central Florida, Tampa Bay area down to Sarasota, Bradenton. Really going to be receiving those heavy, heavy impacts. And then we do expect Milton to stay a hurricane as it moves